How does it take place? Because in you is the Christ of God, dwelling in you. He invaded your body. When? Before you were born. Because God had said to Jeremiah, before you were born, I knew you. Before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you. You had an existence before you were ever born on this earth. You were in God. And so, he says, that Christ that's in you, that is your expression. That is why I put Christ in you, so that you would be able to express what he is. Well, not exactly. But in Isaiah chapter 40, the last verse, I think it is, he said, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. You will mount up with wings as eagles. You will run and not be run and not be weary. You'll walk and not faint. Why? Because it's an exchange. It's an exchange. What he really said was, I will exchange your life, your mortal life, for mine. I said, Lord, you've got a deal there. That's what I want. That's what I want. And he did. He exchanged what I had for what he had. And that was what transformed my life. I want to tell you today, this is an important issue for you. That this change must take place in our life. There is no point in becoming immortal after you die. Why? Because it's got nothing to do with the earth. It's on this earth where man is looking to see immortality. In fact, immortality can only function on the earth, because in the world that is to come, it's all immortal anyway. So that's not having any effect upon the world. Today, God wants you to walk by the Spirit, which is your true identity, and become what he is. Chapter 3, 2 Corinthians, we're back here again. When Moses came down from the mountain, he had to put a veil over his face. What for? Was it because the light was so bright that, dazzling the eyes of the people? I don't think so. Well, then why did he want to put a veil? Because he didn't want the people to see the fading of the glory, which inevitably was to happen. And that was what he didn't want the people to see, the glory fading, because that would have discouraged them. So he put a veil. So they didn't really see the glory of God in the face of Moses at that time. So it says here then, verse 14, but their minds, not their eyes, their minds were blinded. Why? Because you have eyes not just in your head here, but you have eyes in your spirit. You not only have ears out here that hear in the audio range, but you also have ears in your spirit. So there are spiritual faculties just as there are physical faculties. And I want to tell you, your five senses are what most people live by. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Most Christians live their entire life out of those five senses. But not one of them will reveal God to you. Not one of them. You see? So that means that there have to be other faculties within us that God has put there whereby we can know God. In other words, there is a sight which you can have which is by the Spirit, controlled by the Spirit, and it is revealing things of the Spirit. These eyes will never see anything that is invisible. And spirit is invisible. Therefore, your natural eyes will never see. The things of God will never be seen by these eyes. The voice of God will not be heard by these ears. I had a lady say to me one day, "Oh, you're talking about hearing the voice of God." "I hear the voice of God all the time." I said, "Oh, that's wonderful." I said, "What's he saying?" "Oh, he tells me, which shop to go to get the best bargains, and a whole lot of stuff, I said, "How do you hear that?" "Oh," she said, "it just comes out of the sky like that," she said. Yeah. I said, "God bless you, you're doing wonderful." You see, we try to make up all the things that we want. Hear the voice of God, she knew was very important, because obviously somebody told her. So she heard the voice of God. It was always there. Well, God doesn't just yabba, 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 yabba to you all the time. But when you need to hear something, the voice is right there. And I want to tell you, the greatest change in my life came when I heard the voice of God. Only I didn't understand what the change would be. And if I'd known, I might not have pursued trying to hear the voice of God. I might not. Because what happened is this. You see, I had not only a pastoral ministry, but I also had a teaching ministry in the conferences. And in those conferences, people used to come from all over Australia to those conferences, and for many years, I ministered down there at those conferences. People said, "Oh, bless you, Des, you're wonderful." Simply because I knew the Bible. I wasn't preaching then what I'm preaching now. I didn't even know what I'm talking about now, back in those days. So, when I heard the voice of God for the first time, that's about 40 years ago, I thought, this is absolutely wonderful, Lord, that you would talk to me. You would actually tell me something that I needed to know. Well, the problem was that what God began to tell me was contradicting what the theologians had told me. So now I was in a bigger mess than ever. I mean, I was now thoroughly confused. Now I'm hearing the voice of God telling me what the truth is, and my theological training was coming in on top of this and saying, no, that cannot be, because, thus and thus and thus. So this went on just for a little while, and then another conference came up. So I said to my friend who owned the conference center, I said, "Listen, there's a couple of things that have been on my mind, and I'd like to share them with some of the people, but not in the conference. I don't want to mess anything up. So after the meeting, can we just have this extra meeting? People want to go, let them go. Like it's not compulsory." So he said, "Yeah, that's fine." I mean, he didn't know what I was talking about, really. And I didn't even know what I was talking about too much either, too. So anyway, we had this extra meeting. But because, everybody knew me, the whole crowd was in this meeting. And I said, "Look, this is not a preaching session. I haven't come to preach to you. I've come just to share two things with you. The first one is that I now have a problem in dealing with the whole question of hell." I said, "Now, here's the story. The Bible tells me that God is love. Not that he loves people, but he is love.